Hello there, Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Let's tap into the energy around your connection and the person you're focused on and see what Spirit wants to reveal today. As always, keep what resonates with your heart and release anything that isn't meant for you. All right, Cancer, let's get into your reading. So, the message coming in strong today is this, and I need you to hear every single word. A serious conversation is heading your way, and the words inside it will alter your entire trajectory. This person has reached a breaking point within themselves, and silence is no longer an option for them. They are preparing to sit you down and ask one direct question: do you actually want me here? Let us go into it, because the gravity of what the cards reveal today is undeniable and urgent. That question has been burning inside their chest for longer than you realize, and it demands an answer. The tension surrounding this conversation has been accumulating quietly, and the pressure finally exceeds their tolerance. Now, you may have sensed a shift in the atmosphere between you recently, and that shift is directly connected. Subtle changes in their behavior have been signaling this for weeks, even if you could not identify it. Nothing about this approaching dialogue is casual or hypothetical. They intend to receive a definitive, truthful response. This exchange will strip away every layer of ambiguity that has existed between you, leaving only raw honesty. The era of assumption and speculation between you officially ends the moment those words leave their mouth. The first card arriving is the Magician, and this tells me the conversation carries transformative potential within it. It says, this dialogue possesses the power to reconstruct your dynamic, rebuilding everything from the ground upward. Every element needed for a complete relationship transformation already exists, and this conversation activates all of them. The Magician confirms that words spoken during this encounter will function like a catalyst, irreversible once released openly. This person has gathered every ounce of courage required to initiate something they normally would avoid entirely. The Magician tells me they have rehearsed this question privately, perfecting the delivery until it felt undeniable. Their intention behind this conversation is absolute clarity. No more guessing and no more misinterpreting signals. The Magician reveals this person understands the stakes completely and they accept whatever outcome follows their question. They refuse to continue existing in the gray area, and the Magician confirms their resolve is completely unshakable. What makes this reading remarkable is the precision of their timing. They selected a moment you cannot deflect. The next card pulled is the Knight of Cups, and this reveals the emotional force propelling their question. Knight of Cups says this person approaches you carrying their entire heart exposed with zero protective barriers remaining. Their vulnerability during this conversation will shock you because you have never witnessed them this emotionally unguarded before. Knight of Cups confirms the sincerity behind their question is absolute, no manipulation and no hidden agenda present. They genuinely need to know where they stand with you, and the uncertainty has become physically unbearable. Knight of Cups tells me their emotional investment in your answer exceeds anything you currently comprehend. Whatever you say during this conversation will either cement a foundation or dissolve the connection permanently. Stakes could not be higher for them, and that awareness is exactly what finally drove them to act. Then we have the Three of Swords, and this card explains precisely why this talk became unavoidable. The Three of Swords says, accumulated pain from unspoken truths created a wound that demanded this confrontation. Silence between you both has caused more damage than any argument could, and they recognize that clearly now. Three of Swords confirms the heartache of not knowing your true feelings has become worse than potential rejection. The emotional cost of uncertainty finally outweighed their fear of vulnerability, and that tipped the entire scale. They would rather hear a painful truth spoken directly than endure another day of interpreting your mixed signals. The Three of Swords reveals this conversation emerges from genuine suffering, not from anger or ultimatum energy. This approaching dialogue carries the weight of everything unresolved between you, and it will change absolutely everything. Every card confirms this talk is imminent and transformative, and your response determines what comes next for both. Okay, let us come in close today, because your own energy right now is telling me something vital. You already sense that a pivotal moment is approaching and that awareness has been sitting heavy within you. Your body has been holding tension it cannot explain, a tightness in your stomach that arrives without warning. Part of you has been bracing for something significant even before your conscious mind could articulate what. There is a readiness building inside your spirit mixed with a fear that you are not fully prepared. You have been oscillating between wanting absolute clarity and dreading what that clarity might actually demand. Your emotional landscape lately has been turbulent, shifting between certainty and doubt, sometimes within the same hour. One moment you feel grounded and resolute, and the next a wave of uncertainty floods every settled thought. Sleep has been disrupted by thoughts you cannot quiet, and your mind races through scenarios at every opportunity. You catch yourself rehearsing responses to questions nobody has formally asked you yet, and that pattern intensifies. As a water sign ruled by the moon, your emotional currents run deeper than most can grasp, and that depth is precisely why this approaching moment feels so weighted within you. The first card for your side is the High Priestess, and she speaks directly to your inner knowing. The High Priestess says you already possess the answer to the question approaching buried deep inside your intuition. Your subconscious has been processing this situation far longer than your waking mind, and it reached conclusions already. The High Priestess confirms you have been receiving subtle signals from your own spirit, nudges you keep dismissing. Dreams have carried symbolic messages lately, and certain recurring thoughts are not random, but purposeful guidance. She tells me you are more prepared for this than you believe. Your soul already chose its path. The discomfort you feel is not confusion at its root. It is the friction between knowing and admitting. You understand what your heart wants, but the courage to vocalize it remains trapped behind self-protection. The High Priestess reveals your intuition has never once failed you, even when logic suggested a different direction. Trusting that inner voice terrifies you precisely because it asks for a vulnerability you have historically avoided. The next card appearing is the Four of Cups, and this illuminates a pattern you must recognize within. Four of Cups says you have been emotionally guarding yourself so thoroughly that genuine opportunities barely register anymore. A numbness settled over your heart as a defense mechanism, and it served its purpose during harder seasons. You built emotional walls so expertly that even blessings approaching you get filtered through suspicion first. The Four of Cups confirms you have been offered emotional openings recently that you instinctively deflected or minimized. Your default response to vulnerability has become withdrawal, and that reflex now operates without your conscious permission. Four of Cups tells me a weariness lives in your spirit, born from cycles of hope, then disappointment. You conditioned yourself to expect less, so that reality could never wound you as deeply as before. That protective strategy kept you safe temporarily, but it now blocks the exact thing your soul desperately craves. You recognize the deep contradiction within yourself, wanting closeness while simultaneously building barriers against it. Then we have Strength, and this card reveals the extraordinary reservoir of power that lives quietly inside you. Strength says, your capacity to endure emotional intensity far exceeds what your fears have led you to believe. You possess a fierce tenderness that can hold space for difficult truths without breaking or retreating from them. Strength confirms your vulnerability is not weakness disguised. It is the most courageous expression of you. The armor you built was necessary once, but Strength says the season requiring that armor has officially concluded. You are equipped to meet this approaching moment with your full heart open, and the cards validate that your spirit has been quietly gathering courage for exactly this, assembling every piece of resilience you will need. Everything within you is aligning toward readiness, and the only remaining step is choosing to trust yourself fully. You were built for moments exactly like this, and every past experience has been training you. So let us go ahead and get into it, because this person's internal world is collapsing under pressure. This person has been carrying the weight of an unasked question, and it consumed their every thought. They exist in a state of emotional suspension, unable to advance until they receive one definitive spoken answer. Their composure in public disguises a private desperation that would stun anyone who witnessed it unfiltered. Internally, they vacillate between wild hope and absolute dread, and neither state provides them lasting relief. The question they intend to ask has become a singular focus, occupying their mind above everything else. They rehearse the words, constantly adjusting tone and phrasing until the delivery mirrors the gravity of their intent. Every version they practice still feels insufficient because no arrangement of language captures what they actually mean. Their frustration with their own inability to articulate this has reached a critical and unbearable peak. They have discarded countless mental drafts of this conversation, and none of them honored the truth adequately. The first card for their side is the Tower, and this reveals the internal demolition they are experiencing. The Tower says their entire belief system about relationships has been shattered by what they feel. Foundations they considered permanent have crumbled, and the identity they constructed around emotional independence lies in ruins. Now, the Tower confirms this person experienced an internal earthquake, one that leveled every assumption they held about themselves. They genuinely believed they were incapable of needing another soul this profoundly, and that certainty disintegrated. Tower tells me the destruction happening within them is not random chaos. It is necessary clearing for rebuilding. Old frameworks that kept them isolated are being demolished, making room for a version that loves openly. The terror they feel is not about rejection alone, it is about becoming unrecognizable to their former self. They mourn the person they were before this feeling invaded, even while recognizing that person was incomplete. The Tower reveals their pride took the heaviest blow because needing another contradicts everything they publicly represent. The next card appearing is the Five of Wands, and this exposes the internal conflict raging inside them. Five of Wands says multiple competing voices battle within their mind, constantly each arguing for a different outcome. One voice insists they protect their dignity by remaining silent, while another screams that silence equals cowardice. Now, a third voice whispers that vulnerability at their level invites exploitation and that warning has paralyzed them before. Five of Wands confirms their internal warfare escalated to a point where inaction became more painful than risk. They cannot sustain this level of psychological conflict any longer, and the fractures within demand immediate resolution. Every competing impulse eventually surrendered to one dominant truth. They would rather be exposed than continue. Five of Wands tells me the battle within them has essentially concluded and the decision to speak won. The losing voices still protest weakly in the background, but their resolve has overpowered every remaining objection firmly. Then we have the Page of Cups, and this card unveils the most tender layer beneath their turmoil. Page of Cups says, beneath the conflict and the fear there exists a childlike sincerity they barely recognize. This person discovers emotions within themselves that feel ancient and new simultaneously, as though awakening from extended dormancy. Page of Cups confirms their desire to ask this question originates from the most innocent and unguarded place. They approach this conversation not from strategic calculation, but from a raw need to be genuinely known completely. The Page of Cups reveals they privately feel young and terrified, stripped of the authority their title provides. In this specific arena of vulnerability, their accomplishments offer zero protection, and their status provides no advantage whatsoever. They stand emotionally equal to anyone who has ever risked everything on four devastating words. This person privately trembles at the threshold of the most honest sentence they have ever prepared. Now let us go deeper into this because the action surrounding this conversation is accelerating rapidly today. This person has already selected the exact setting where they intend to deliver this question to you. The location was chosen deliberately. Somewhere private enough for honesty, but familiar enough to settle nervous energy. They have cleared their schedule around a specific window of time, blocking hours that normally hold obligations. Calls have been rescheduled and commitments postponed, creating a deliberate gap that exists solely for this. Their phone will be silenced and their attention completely undivided because they refuse any interruption during this moment. Trusted confidants have been briefed in advance, not on the details, but on the significance of what approaches. One close ally received instructions to hold all communications during the designated window. No exceptions granted whatsoever. The preparation behind this single conversation rivals the planning they invest in their most consequential negotiations. Nothing about their approach has been left to chance because improvisation feels unacceptable given what hangs in balance. The first card here is the Chariot, and this confirms a person moving toward you with unstoppable determination. The Chariot says this person has locked onto a trajectory and absolutely nothing will redirect their course. Now, obstacles that previously stalled them have been systematically dismantled, cleared through sheer willpower and focused intent. Chariot confirms they mapped out contingency plans for every possible response you might offer during this exchange. If you hesitate, they have a follow-up prepared. If you deflect, they have a grounding statement ready. The Chariot tells me their physical movements have shifted noticeably, carrying a new urgency visible to observers. They walk faster and speak with sharper precision, exhibiting behaviors consistent with a person nearing a critical deadline. Personal grooming and presentation have received unusual attention recently. Details calibrated to project their absolute best. Wardrobe selections for the approaching encounter have already been decided, chosen to communicate seriousness without intimidation. Even their chosen fragrance was selected with intention, a detail most would overlook, but they considered essential. The next card pulled is the Six of Wands, and this reveals public signals preceding their private move. Six of Wands says this person has been making themselves increasingly visible within your shared social landscape. Appearances at gatherings where your attendance is likely have become suspiciously frequent, and the pattern is intentional. They position themselves within your line of sight consistently, establishing familiarity before the direct conversation takes place. Six of Wands confirms they have been building social proof, ensuring others validate their presence to you. Mutual acquaintances have been subtly influenced to mention their name positively, seeding favorable impressions before direct contact. Six of Wands tells me they secured an introduction pathway, a natural bridge that eliminates cold approach. Then we have the Ace of Pentacles, and this card shows the tangible foundation being constructed here. Ace of Pentacles says this person invested material resources into creating the perfect conditions for this conversation. A reservation or private venue has been secured, a space curated specifically for the gravity of their question. Ace of Pentacles confirms practical arrangements are finalized. Every logistical element handled so nothing distracts. Transportation, timing, and location have all been coordinated, leaving zero room for external interference during this pivotal exchange. They even considered what refreshments to have available, anticipating a conversation that extends well beyond the initial question. Ace of Pentacles tells me the groundwork is complete and the only remaining action is executing their plan. Every practical element stands in position like a carefully arranged stage waiting for the principal actors. Now, this person has done everything humanly possible to prepare, and the conversation itself is the only step remaining. The machinery of their pursuit is fully operational, and activation requires nothing more than your shared presence together. Okay, let us go ahead and dive into this because what this person privately confesses will stagger you. This person harbors admissions so raw that even forming them into coherent thought feels physically overwhelming. They confess in absolute silence that the question they plan to ask already has a predetermined answer. They already know what they want you to say, and anything other than that will shatter them entirely. The confession buried deepest is this: they need you in a way that contradicts every principle they uphold. Needing another human being at this magnitude was supposed to be impossible, and yet here they quietly stand. They privately admit they have lost the ability to imagine a satisfying future that does not include you. Every scenario they construct without your presence in it collapses because the emptiness it produces is unbearable. Their hidden truth is that this question is not really a question. It is a desperate plea. Wrapped inside those four words lives a lifetime of suppressed longing, finally demanding to be acknowledged. The first card pulled is the Ten of Wands, and this reveals the crushing burden their confession carries. Ten of Wands says, this person has been shouldering unspoken devotion and the weight is breaking them. They confess privately that maintaining silence about their feelings has become the hardest labor of their existence. Every interaction where they must pretend indifference costs them something vital, a piece of their authenticity each time. Ten of Wands confirms they are exhausted from performing neutrality when internally a tender longing consumes them. Their hidden admission is that the facade of composure they present to the world is entirely manufactured. Without this resolution, they cannot continue functioning at the level their life demands, and they recognize that clearly. Ten of Wands tells me their confession includes a startling vulnerability. They feel fundamentally incomplete without your presence. That admission violates every narrative they constructed about self-sufficiency, and accepting it required enormous courage. They confess that waking without resolution feels like drowning slowly, each morning heavier than the one preceding it. The next card appearing is the Devil, and this exposes the most forbidden layer of their hidden desires. The Devil says, this person privately confesses to a consuming quality, one that genuinely alarms them. They recognize the consuming nature of their attachment, and the lack of control over it disturbs them profoundly. Their confession includes an admission that they have tried to extinguish this intensity and failed every single attempt. The Devil confirms they feel chained to this connection by forces they cannot rationalize or intellectualize away. They secretly desire a bond so total that boundaries between two separate identities begin to dissolve completely. The Devil tells me their hidden yearning includes protectiveness they have never experienced, an unfamiliar, devoted instinct. They confess silently that a tender devotional need surfaces whenever they imagine another person occupying the space they covet. That admission unsettles them because they have always prided themselves on emotional detachment and rational composure above all. Then we have the Two of Cups, and this card reveals the most sacred confession hidden beneath everything. Two of Cups says this person secretly desires mutual surrender, a bond where both souls choose completely. Their deepest hidden wish is not dominance or possession, but a partnership built on absolute reciprocal vulnerability. Two of Cups confirms they privately want a love that mirrors their intensity, not one that tolerates it. They desire a connection where their full, unedited self receives acceptance, not the curated version they present publicly. Two of Cups reveals their ultimate confession. They want to hear you say yes with your whole being, not a hesitant agreement or conditional acceptance, but a response that matches the totality of what they offer. This person confesses in the deepest chamber of their heart that your answer will define everything that follows. Every hidden admission across these cards points to one inescapable truth. They are wholly and irreversibly yours already. So, let us go ahead and get into it because the near future surrounding this conversation is pivotal. The cards confirm this defining talk arrives within days, not weeks, and the proximity of it is undeniable. A specific moment crystallizes where this person stands before you, and those four words finally leave their mouth. The setting will feel intimate and deliberately chosen, stripped of distraction so that nothing competes with the truth. Their delivery will be quieter than you expect, weighted with sincerity that makes the air between you thicken. You will recognize instantly that this is not rehearsed performance. It is the rawest sentence ever spoken. The first card for the near future is Wheel of Fortune, and this confirms a destined turning point. Wheel of Fortune says, the trajectory of your connection pivots on this single exchange, and fate endorses it. Circumstances beyond either of your control have been conspiring to produce this exact intersection at this exact timing. Wheel of Fortune confirms that whatever unfolds from this conversation was always meant to happen precisely this way. Then we have the Sun, and this card radiates confirmation that clarity and joy follow this approaching dialogue. The Sun says, the outcome of this conversation brings illumination, burning away every shadow of doubt that remained. Truth spoken openly between you produces a warmth that neither of you anticipated, and it transforms everything permanently. The sun confirms that after this exchange, a heaviness lifts from both of you simultaneously and completely. Now, the advice coming through from Spirit today is direct, and I need you to receive it fully. When this person asks their question, pause before you respond and let the gravity of the moment register. Do not rush your answer out of nervousness. Allow the silence between question and response to breathe. Speak from the truest place within you, not from fear and not from what they want to hear. Your honesty in this moment matters more than perfection, and an imperfect truth outweighs a polished deflection. Always meet their vulnerability with equal openness because matching their courage validates everything they risk to arrive here. Now, let me bring this full reading together with a recap of today's powerful message for you. The message today was this: a serious conversation where they ask, "Do you want me?" is approaching fast. This talk will change everything between you and your response, carries the power to reshape both your futures. The magician confirmed the transformative potential. Knight of Cups revealed their emotional sincerity, approaching with zero barriers. Three of Swords explained the accumulated pain that made this conversation unavoidable. Born from silence, not anger. The High Priestess confirmed you already hold the answer within, and Four of Cups exposed your protective walls. Strength revealed the extraordinary courage living inside you, more than sufficient for whatever this moment demands of you. The Tower exposed their internal demolition. Five of Wands showed the war between their competing voices raging within. Page of Cups unveiled their childlike sincerity beneath the turmoil. Approaching this question from their most unguarded place, the Chariot confirmed unstoppable forward movement. Six of Wands showed strategic social positioning preceding the private conversation directly. Ace of Pentacles revealed tangible preparation invested into this moment. Every logistical detail handled with meticulous care. Ten of Wands exposed the crushing burden of their unspoken devotion, and the Devil showed consuming forbidden longing. Two of Cups confirmed their wish for mutual surrender, and Wheel of Fortune endorsed this destined timing. The Sun radiates confirmation that clarity and joy emerge once truth is finally spoken openly between you both. Every single card across this entire reading pointed toward one undeniable conclusion. This conversation changes everything for you. You are ready for this moment, and the answer living inside your heart already knows what to say. Thank you so much for being here with me today and for trusting me with your reading completely. I appreciate you deeply and sincerely, and I am sending you all of my love and light always.